Hello, hello. audio on. But what do you take are the possibility?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. So today we are going to take a look at some of the forgotten lessons of the Quran. The Quran, we know, is the source of inspiration, the source of guidance, and the source of immense understanding as far as humanity is concerned. Unfortunately, it has been made a book primarily for Muslims. However, as we know from the Quran itself, that it is a book which is meant for mankind. Its message is eternal. Its message is for eternity. Its message is for every single human being. And as such, unfortunately, in the past many centuries, it has become more of a book which is used to be studied when a person passes away. And it's like transferring the reward of what we read in the Quran to the dear departed. Or it is used to be, because as a person, that when people memorize Quran by heart, then their purpose is to basically think that if they memorize the Quran by heart, then they will be going straight to paradise, not only themselves, but they will also be responsible for taking two family members to paradise as well. So in short, the actual value of the Quran, the actual purpose of the Quran as a source of guidance, as a source of divine guidance, as a source which actually complements the innate guidance which each of us has been born with, has been primarily sacrificed. So some of the very forgotten lessons of the Quran that we need to understand, that we need to revise, that we need to keep revisiting are ones that I would like to point out. The first of these forgotten lessons is that primarily the Quran says that all human beings are equal. In fact, the verse which says so, a forgotten verse once again, in Surah al-Hujurat is said, Ya ayyuhan nas inna khalaqnakum min zakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qabaila lita'arafu, which means that, O mankind, it's not said Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu, it's not said that, O believers. The words are Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind. O mankind, we have created you from a single species of male and female. إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ ذَكَرٍ وَأُنْثَىٰ وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا, and we have made you into tribes and into families so that you are able to distinguish yourselves, so that you are recognized. But then there is a warning statement right after that, and that is إِنَّا أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ, which means that this division into various tribes, this division into various families must not become a means of expressing your superiority over others, because as far as superiority is concerned, it is based on taqwa or God consciousness, and this is something which only God can gauge. So the first lesson that we have to once again revisit and perhaps follow as far as possible, the fact that as human beings, all of us are born equal. We have a great commonality between all of us. All human values, kindness, sympathy, compassion, truthfulness, justice, they form that tremendous subset amongst our commonalities, and we are able to gauge that these human and universal values are the values that bring us together. And a natural consequence of this is that we should not be people who judge other people on the basis of what they do or what they don't do. The Quran is absolutely clear that as far as taqwa is concerned, as far as God consciousness is concerned, which actually is the reason why a person could be regarded as superior, this is something which only God knows. So, inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most God conscious of you is the one who is the most honorable in the sight of God. So humanity, to be a person who cares for other people, to be a person who is always looking after other people, to be a person who is always on the lookout that if he is given an opportunity to be of any help to other people, then this is something that he.
Religious divides, similarly, any divides that you can think of, there should not be any hindrance as far as our connection with humanity is concerned. This kindness, this compassion should connect us not only to the country that we belong to the citizens that we are, but also to other parts of the globe. In other words, we are not just citizens of our country, we are citizens of the globe. We should feel the same for other people the way we should feel for our own selves, because remember, we belong to the same human family. So this human fraternity to which we belong is something that we have to look up to. We have to understand that we are part of this global community. We are part of this global family. And this global family, if you look at and go to the top and trace its history, it began with Adam and Eve. In other words, we are one giant human family. And if we are one giant human family, then we should behave as family members to one another. And what do family members do? Family members are a cause of support to one another. You can fall back on your family members. You can be confidants of your family members. You are kind to your family members. You always think about the betterment of your family members. Any distress that comes to your family member, wherever that person is, should also distress you. So if you're sitting, for example, in a far-flung area, let's say you're in Australia and there is a bushfire or there's a huge fire right across the globe in California, it should be of equal concern to you, because now you are not just a citizen of your own country, which is Australia, you're also a citizen of the globe. And that globe, wherever mankind inhabits that globe, it should be a concern of ours. So you see, this is the vision which Quran gives us. And unfortunately, we have failed to communicate this vision. This vision gives you this global perspective in which every single human being is connected to one another, because all of us are one family. All of us, we belong to the same human family. The second forgotten lesson that we once again need to revisit and revive in ourselves is the fact that seldom do we realize the blessings of God. Seldom do we think about things when we are in distress ourselves. So you see, the blessings of God, they abound. And if we have to just refer to one verse of the Quran, the very famous verse that comes to my mind is وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا, that if you start to count the blessings of God, you'll not be able to count them. So whenever we are in distress, whenever we are in a spot of bother, whenever we feel that we are left alone for some reason or the other, whenever we feel that people are unkind to us, in other words, we feel as if no one is caring about us, or maybe we have suffered some loss. It could be financial loss. It could be the departure of some close relative. It could be because of some ailment. So see, these are the things that really affect us. But one thing which the Quran has pointed out here is an antidote to all these feelings of being left out. And the Quran actually says that if you count your blessings, then you will realize that the things that you don't have are very paltry. They are trivial in relation to what God has given us. So this forgotten lesson must once again be revived in our minds, and that is, God is caring for us. He is looking after us. He is blessing us, and He has blessed us even without being entitled to a number of His favors. And I always think that the smallest thing is perhaps the biggest thing at times that we don't realize. Eyes are a very small part of our body, but to be blessed with eyes, to be able to see across, to be able to observe the scenery in front of us, the people around us, is a singular blessing of God that we take for granted. And we don't realize that people who are without eyes, people who are blind, people who in some way are going blind, and we don't realize their plight. And we think that because eyes are blinking as soon as we get up in the morning, we are open our eyes and we are able to observe and further our routine. So we just don't give enough attention to this blessing. And this is just one small thing. Otherwise, if we look at the whole system of the universe, we'll find that it is taking care of us. It is nurturing us. It is providing for us the sun, the moon, the stars, the wind, the mountains, the sea, the lakes, the wind, the rain. All these things are meant for our sustenance. And they are looking after us tirelessly, endlessly, since time immemorial, since time when humankind was born on this earth. And then if you take a step ahead, look at your parents, look at our parents, the way they care for us, the way they have brought us up, the way they tend to us, they put themselves in difficulty. and make life comfortable for us. And then, of course, we have our own siblings, our own children, who are a means of comfort for all of us. We have not only these facilities, but we also have meals that we can regularly take. We have access to education. We have access to health facilities. And this is something, if we realize that 50% of humanity is perhaps living below the poverty line, they are with these basic necessities. It is then that we'll realize how God has been kind to us. And it is then that we'll realize if we are suffering from a paltry loss, then in fact, the things that we have far outnumber what we don't have. So the second lesson that we have to revise and revisit is to keep on counting our blessings, to be in a position to always thank God for what He has given us and not complain for what we have maybe suffered at that time. Maybe we have gone through some loss, because that loss is going to be made up one day from God. The third lesson, again, that we have to learn and revisit is the lesson of justice. Lesson in which you have to speak the truth and to side by the truth, to speak nothing but the truth, the whole truth, to abide by the truth. And this is something that we need to do, even if it goes against our own interests, the interests of our parents, the interests of our relatives. And the Quran, again, coming to our rescue, has said that you have to bear witness to the truth. We have to kunu kawwamina bil qisti shuhada lillah. And it says, walau ala anfusikum awil walidain wal aqrabin, that you have to speak the truth, you have to bear witness to the truth and justice, even if this goes against your own interests, if it goes against the interests of your parents, if it goes against the interests of your relatives, even then you have to speak the truth, side by the truth, and bear witness to truth and justice. This, again, is something that many a time we sacrifice in our lives. We don't realize the importance of truth. We should continue to remind ourselves that truth is God's representative on earth. If we have truth on the one side and any other thing on the other side, our inclination, our preference must naturally be the truth. And even if that truth is something that damages our own interests, we could lose anything. We might lose some assets, we might lose some wealth, we might end up giving a lot of things away that we might own. But if that is the requirement of truth, then this is something that we have to put up to. And the Quran, in fact, has taken one step ahead in this matter of justice. It says that not only have you to bear witness to truth and justice as regards your own people, but the Quran says that you have to be just with your enemies also. So it says, La yajrimannakum shana'anu qawmin ala an la ta'dilu i'dilu huwa aqrabu lit-taqwa. That the enmity of a nation should not urge you, should not inspire you to be unjust to that nation. I'dilu, you must be just to it. Huwa aqrabu lit-taqwa, because this justice is closer to piety. It's closer to God consciousness. So this justice has to be dispensed at every level. As a person who is dispensing this justice, we might be a father, we might be a mother, we might be a businessman, we might be a politician, we might be a sportsman. Whatever our status is, this justice is something that has to be meted out. This truthfulness that we have to adhere to is again part of this justice that we must always adhere to. And as I've just said, the Quran has taken that wonderful leap when it says that justice has to be dispensed even with your enemies. When your enemy is standing right in front of you in a particular, maybe a case, and you are sitting on the seat of a judge, and you feel that your enemy is on the right in this particular instance, then this should not be a means of settling your score against your enemy, thinking that now you have the chance to take revenge. No, you have to show this justice. Justice has to be unbiased. It has to be across the board. It has to be with every single person. And as you might have heard, that Socrates, a famous scholar, the famous Greek philosopher, in fact, has said that justice is the queen of all virtues. And yes, it is. And justice is the queen of all virtues. And remember, one of the most prominent features and traits and attributes of the Almighty is that He is just. And it is primarily to administer and dispense with justice that He is going to bring about a day of judgment. This day of judgment is the day in which every single person will face justice from the Almighty. And that justice will actually be instrumental in making that person either go to paradise or to hell. So in other words, such is the importance of justice that we have to adhere to it. It should not be sacrificed for any paltry gain. It must not be put aside for any personal interest. So yes, at times we do make this mistake that in order to please our parents, in order to not make them angry in any way, we do not do the due. We not come across as a person who is just because we think that our parents might get angry or maybe they might suffer a loss. No, the thing is that whether they get angry or not, yes, you have to be polite. Yes, you have to be gentle with them. But then this does not mean that if they are standing contrary to justice in any way, then you should not oppose them. Yes, you must tell them what the right thing is. The fourth lesson that once again we find to be that has gone into oblivion, I would say, that is forgotten, is that we often talk about how we are going to reform the society, or often how other people are doing wrong. But look at the Quran. The Quran says that, alaykum anfusakum, think about your own selves. Be more concerned about what you are doing than what other people are doing. Yes, we do get affected by what other people do. But then the Quran says that this is something that you have to realize it does not concern you as much as what you do for your own self. So, alaykum anfusakum, think of what you are doing, what are your duties, and the only way forward, if you have to become a good human being and consequently a good Muslim, is that you have to go through a rigorous process of self-accountability. This is the only way forward. Look at what we are doing that must be set right. And self-accountability is something that is the way forward. So, for example, every day before we go to sleep, we should see what we have done during that day. We must observe and we must analyze the mistakes that we have committed on that day and make a mental note of them, and also commit ourselves that we will not repeat these mistakes the next day. This is what we call self-accountability. We take account of our deeds. We are responsible for what we did as wrong. And this self-accountability, remember, is something that's not going to immediately produce results, because human beings are not like machines. They're not push buttons. It'll always take time. So remember, the biggest weapon of Satan is that he makes you lose hope in your own selves. And whenever you make a commitment that I'll not do something wrong, and you end up doing that wrong thing once again the next day, and the next day, and the next day, the thought that comes to your mind is that I'm good for nothing. I'm worthless. I'm a hopeless person because I make this commitment and I break it immediately. So the language of the Quran is obviously Arabic. The name of Satan in Arabic is Iblis. So the word Iblis actually means a person who has lost hope in the mercy of God. So what he does is, the biggest weapon which Satan actually uses is that he makes human beings lose hope in God's mercy. And he does this by telling them that you're good for nothing, you make commitments and you go back on your commitments. So we must not come into this lure of Satan. So if we are not able to honor the commitment that we made by realizing our mistakes, we should keep on trying and trying and trying the next day and the next day, and keep on doing it. Because remember, this is something that is one day going to help us. It is one day going to make us stand up and make us realize that if we get up after every fall, if we get up after stumbling, God is going to care for us. He's going to give us that strength to fight evil as much as we can. But then for this, we must keep on this process of self-accountability going. It is like cleansing yourself every day. So just as we don't stop cleansing our rooms from the filth and the dust which accumulates in it, because it keeps on. I mean, this is something which goes on and on and on. So just as dusting and vacuum cleaning our rooms and our homes does not end, it's like a lifetime thing. On a very similar note, this self-accountability is like a lifetime commitment that we have to make, because every time we try to become better, there are things that might impede us. We might be able to surmount these difficulties. We might be able to conquer and vanquish them. But then again, the next day and the next day, once again, we have our desires, we have the lures of Satans, we have provocations, we have temptations, and we might be led back into them. So it's a continuous process. We must not let go of this process till our last breath. The fifth important lesson that again seems to be a forgotten lesson and that needs to be revised and it needs to be kept in mind time and again is that one of the greatest things which God wants us is to exercise patience. So patience is the name of the game. Patience in times of trouble and botheration. Patience when we think that things are going the other way. Patience when we think that the unexpected is happening and we would not like it to happen the way things are happening. Patience when people behave in a way that we are shell-shocked, that what kind of behavior is this? So patience is something that is going to make us realize that at times things happen for the good, although we might not realize it. If we look at things in hindsight, we'll realize that a lot of things that we might have wished to have happened, if they did not happen, then we do think that, well, it was better that it did not happen, because had they happened the way we wanted them to happen, we would have ended up in a lot of problems. So this gives us this tremendous push that our hindsight, when we look back at events that might have happened in the way that we would not have liked them to happen, we would have been in a lot of problems. So I think this is one thing that we have to realize, that whenever things happen the way we would not like them to have happened, a Quranic verse is something that might help us. And this Quranic verse in Surah Baqarah, although it occurs in a specific context, but it also is true generally. So the words are, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. At times, something you don't like happens, but it is better for you. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ. And at times you like something would have happened for you, but وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ. It is something which would have been evil, it would have resulted in a lot of botheration for you. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. God knows and you do not know. So it is here that you have to trust God, that if things are not happening the way we expect them to happen, then remember they are happening as per God's wishes, as per the plan of God. And God's plan is superior to all plans. So this patience is something that should always be our greatest support. We must rely on patience. We must be patient individuals. And the Quran has in fact said at a number of occasions that it is this patience which is going to win you the reward of paradise. وَجَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا جَنَّةً وَحَرِيرًا. It is this reward of patience which is paradise. جَزَاهُمْ بِمَا صَبَرُوا. It is the reward of being patient that you end up in God's paradise. Because of course, we pass through a lot of trials. We pass through a lot of tribulations. And then we also must need to understand and think that as far as these trials are concerned, as far as these tribulations are concerned, God has some wisdom behind them. That wisdom is always working. For example, these trials, they come at times to give us the opportunity to come closer to God. So remember, when we are pushed, when we are bothered, when we are agitated, when we feel that we have been left alone, when we are full of grief, this makes us give that urge to us that we should come closer to God, because it is then that we realize that we need the support of God. So at times these trials and these tribulations and these tests come so that they give us this opportunity to cash upon and come closer to God. Similarly, these trials and these tests, when they come and if we show patience, we will realize that once we come out of that trial, we are stronger than before. We are much more resilient than before, isn't that? We do realize that passing through a test makes us stronger than before, and it opens new frontiers for us. And at the same time, maybe there is a bigger trial waiting for us, and God is preparing us by making us more strong and more resilient. So trials, they also make us more resilient. So you see, everything has some wisdom behind it. And if we show patience, if we exercise patience, then this is something that will always be in our favor. If you look at our worship rituals, the worship ritual of the fast is one of the greatest rituals which inculcates this patience in us. When we give up food, when we give up our carnal desires, when we give up drinking for a particular period of time, it creates that patience, that perseverance, that steadfastness in us that we often need, because now we are depriving ourselves of an essential need. So the antidote to become a person who is impatient is to use the fast, especially the optional fasts, to our advantage. If we fast we keep these optional fasts, Of course, there are a lot of other things that we gain, but one of the things that we will gain is this beautiful trait of patience. We will be patient, we will be steadfast, and we will be happy at the scheme of God. So patience is not just something that we do because we don't have any other option. It is like being happy at what God has ordained for us. It is like expressing our contentment. It is like expressing that we are happy with God's decision. And this again is something that I do find is a forgotten lesson. And we need to once again revisit the Quran. We must find out that as far as this important trait is concerned, it is something that if it remains with us, we will always be people and individuals who are looking after the other. The sixth important lesson, which again is a forgotten lesson, is the fact that we know from the Quran itself that we must obey the rule of law. And it might seem something very ordinary, but it is something which is very, very essential and very significant. The rule of law is something that we have to follow at all cost. And this rule of law is something, it can be the law of the land, it could be the law in which you are living, the place that you are living. So you have to be a law-abiding citizen. And the Quran has said this in very unequivocal terms. It says, Atiullah wa atiu Rasul wa ulul amri minkum. Obey God and the Prophet and your rulers. The way they enact laws, they legislate laws, of course, is one of the corollaries of obeying the rulers. When they enact laws in your countries on the basis of majority opinion, then they are to be followed. You have to be a law-abiding citizen. A law-abiding citizen is a citizen who never violates the law. In fact, he or she follows the law in letter and in spirit. It's letter and spirit, both that have to be followed. As small a thing as not texting while driving. It's not just a traffic violation law. It's a law that connects you to God as well, because God tells you to follow the law of the land, to follow the law of the city or the country that you're living in. And when you're not texting while driving, because texting while driving has been outlawed in many countries, then you have to follow that. And you must relate this to the fact that you're not just abiding by the law of your country, you're actually abiding by a directive of the Quran, which tells you that you must be a law-abiding citizen. Let's ask this question to ourselves, that how many of us are law-abiding citizens? How many of us, we violate traffic signals? We violate other important laws, and we don't even think that we are, in fact, violating the covenant that we have made with God. Such is this importance that to be a person who is living in a country, because we are living under an oath, especially if we are living in a non-Muslim country, it becomes equally important to obey the law of the land. Yes, if you find that law of the land in contradiction or in some way against your own beliefs, you can put up the matter before the people of the country, your own representatives. But if something does not happen, then you are not required, or you have no warranty to break the law. You have to either follow the law or you move away from that country, you migrate from that country. Just one example might suffice here, especially for people who are living in the non-Muslim countries. So most non-Muslim countries are monogamous. They don't allow more than one marriage. Very large part of the US does so. In Australia, in the UK, in many other countries, yes, there are exceptions, but a very large part of the Western society does not allow polygamy. But we do find Muslims engaging in more than one marriage, and they don't declare the second or the third marriage because they know that if they do that, they'll not have the protection of the law. In fact, they might be even deported from the country that they're living in. So what they're doing is they are trying to fool the law. They don't express this before the law. They just keep one wife as far as the law is concerned, but they marry more than one times by doing nikah outside of the law. And they think that is something which is acceptable. Again, we have to realize that this is a despicable thing. We just cannot do that. Yes, permission to have more than one wife might be there, but it's not an obligation. It's not something mandatory. And if some law stops you from doing that, then what we are required to do is to follow that law. And in letter and spirit, we cannot fool that law. And if we fool that law, make fun of that law, then we will be held answerable before the Almighty on the day of judgment. The final thing that I want to tell you or share with you regarding the lessons of the Quran that we have forgotten, that we need to once again revive and revise in our minds, is that as human beings, we are born not just for our own selves. We are born to live for others as well. So life, only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. To always put others before our own selves, to always care about others, to always think about others. And actually, the Quran has pointed out this very fact when it talked about the Sahaba once, and it says, "Yusiruna ala anfusihim walau kana bihin qasasa" in Surah Hashr, that these are people who give others priority over themselves, even though they themselves are in need. So they give priority to other people in spite of being in need, which means that at times we need to have that sacrificial attitude, that we might need something and some of our brother or sister might need the same thing equally. But one thing which the Quran sets as a target, it's not an obligation, of course, it's not a mandatory thing, but an obligation, a target that must always remain before us is that at times when we sacrifice something for the love of God, for the cause of God, then it is one thing that so many people have shared this experience, that when the person's own time comes to be met with that need, somehow or the other, God comes down and helps that person in a way that you could not have even imagined. And it is here that we are able to experience God. We might not be able to think of God, to see God. We might not be able to, in any way, to touch God. But yes, what we are able to do is we can experience God by simply caring about other people and then seeing how God in turn cares about you. And he does so in a windfall gain time, or a windfall gain manner. So let us be also more charitable, more generous, more thinking of other people. How mankind today is in misery is something that we all know. The sufferings are all around us. Don't think that societies which are developed or which are welfare societies in countries, they don't have homeless people. They don't have people who are orphans, small children who are orphans, or the terminally sick people, or animals who need to be cared. Every society might have some, I mean, it might be outdoing other societies in some way or the other, but such people who are in misery, they exist in every society. It's just a question of opening our eyes towards these people and making them realize that, yes, we are there for you. Yes, we will be able to share your miseries. We can listen to you and we will do our best to take care of you. So let us be more punctual in all these things. So I wanted to share these small feelings, I would say, and these small emotions with you, that must realize that although we have been studying the Quran for the past many years, and our venture and our journey has been more intellectual, but this intellectual journey of studying the Quran must not in any way make us deviate from the passion and from the message of the Quran, which is found writ large in every second or third page, that it is this humanity which is the crux of all religion. If we are not human beings, if we are not good human beings, if we are not caring individuals, if we are not people who are basically trying to improve themselves with every coming day, then maybe we have lost the message somewhere. Maybe we might be offering our prayer, fasting, going for Hajj, but then we are not improving ourselves as individuals. So remember, these worship rituals, they are not an end in themselves. They are a means to an end, and that is to become a better person. So if our worship rituals are not making us improve in our lives, then there is something wrong in them that we need to correct. So thank you very much for being part of this listening ambience. And if you have any questions today, what we've just discussed, please raise them. We just have about 10 minutes for those questions.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful wisdom, Dr. Saleem. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hands pertaining to this particular session that we had, or anything that is general in nature. Dr. Saleem, I do not see any hands right now. I'm still waiting. If you need to add something to what you said, please go ahead. When I see some hands, I will interrupt.
Okay, so something that I would add further in this regard is that when we are studying, when we are gaining knowledge, one of the most important things in gaining knowledge is humility in knowledge. And that humility in knowledge actually means that one must never express oneself as the final word on any topic. This is not the prerogative of any human being. The final word always rests with God or his prophets. As far as we individuals are concerned, we are human beings who are liable to falter, who are liable to make errors. So therefore, we have to realize that in case of any error or omission, we must always, whenever we realize, we must always make up for it, and we must never present ourselves as if we have discovered the ultimate thing. Our humility is the key to the next frontier in knowledge.
Dr. Saleem, we have some raised hands. Omar Farooq, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Omar Farooq. Okay, Naushad Shafqat Saab, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
Okay,
Dr. Saab, since there were no hands raised, I thought I would ask my stupid question. It is when you say that we must obey the laws of the land that we live in, and you referred to polygamy. But if a person residing in America, being an American citizen or dual national, he comes to Pakistan and he gets married, remarried again, and then takes his wife. Would that also be against the principles that are laid down by the Quran?
Well,
Because this
the very
must be
simple thing is,
circumventing.
yeah, actually, the
This
law of the
must be
land, you need to ask the US law of the land for that, that if someone marries in a different country, if that woman or that wife is brought back to the States, is it something that they would honor or not? So this is a question that just needs to be put to those authorities. I mean, the Quran says that you have to obey the law of the land, whatever that law is. So if the law is that you are not admitted a second wife, even if you marry that wife from in some other country, then you have to follow that law. But if the law says that in your own country that you're living in, you can just contract a single marriage and you can bring some other wife from some other country, then of course there is this latitude. But to my knowledge, there is no such latitude. The US law, the Australian law, the UK law, whether you marry in the same country or in some other country, it is the same. And that is that you cannot maintain more than one wife in the country that you're living in, which of course, in this case, is the United States.
Right, sir. Thank you very much. But, sir, I was asking in the context, like, for example, abortion was illegal in some states in the United States and not illegal in other states. So women who needed an abortion usually flew out of their state where there was a ban on abortion and went there, got an abortion and came back. That was not considered to be a violation of the law. That is why I asked this question. Anyway,
Yes, that would not
sir.
be a violation, of course, but I mean, because that is something that the law respects. So I think the same question must be put forth regarding multiple marriages. If this is something which a state allows, that could be something. But yes, there are states, I think, if I remember, there are still 2 states which do allow multiple marriages. This was formerly the case, maybe it's no longer the case. Then, I mean, this is something that might be benefited from. But then remember, for that, you might need to live in those states. Because the state that you live in proscribes more than one marriage. So if you are not doing anything which is against the law, I mean, the simple thing is that you have to respect the law, whatever that law is. Either you have the ability to have the law changed to your representative, or you just follow it, or maybe just migrate from that place. I mean, in any way, abusing the law, misusing the law, or hoodwinking the law, or bypassing the law should not be done.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
So, Dr. Saleem, I have a question or an observation. So tell me, sometimes when I think about religion, God made religion because, of course, he made us. So he understands our mind. And God probably knew that the best way to control humans is to give them a discipline, and is that the concept? Sometimes I wonder, religion is like a discipline, because when you follow or practice a religion, in this case, when you practice Islam, it kind of, if you follow it the correct way, your mind kind of stays on the straight and narrow. So is that the concept that there is? Because he created us, he knew exactly how to control or train our minds. Is that a way to look at it?
The Quran actually uses a different word, although the outcome is similar. And that is, religion is basically a covenant between human beings and their creator. It's like a pledge, a promise that they make. The Quran calls it misak. So the word misak, or covenant, or an agreement that you are required to abide by. So, of course, discipline is the consequence of that you have to abide by that covenant in a disciplined way, in a vigilant way. So it's a promise that we have given to the Almighty that yes, the Sharia that you have revealed, we are going to abide by that. The Sharia that you have sent down to us is something that is for our own benefit, and we give you our word that we are going to abide by that. And as I said, abiding by a law is something that can only be done if you are disciplined enough. If you don't have discipline, or if you don't have that organized personal inclination or temperament, you would more often than not end up violating the law or violating the covenant that you've made with the Almighty.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Umar Farooq, if you can unmute your mic and ask your question, otherwise we'll move to the next person.
Actually, I will take the last question if there is time. So you can move to the next, because I have a different yani matter unrelated to this one. I want to.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Amar Rasool, if you want to unmute your mic and ask your question. Amar, if you can hear me.
Ji.
Yeah. Okay,
Assalamu
go ahead.
alaikum. Dr. Sir, I wanted to
Right.
better understand the concept of sabr that has been laid out in the Quran as such an important value to have. Because यहाँ पे पाकिस्तान के अंदर, if I can ask you in Urdu, होता ही है कि अगर आपके साथ कोई ज्यादती हो जाए, कोई आपके प्लॉट पे कब्जा हो जाए, कोई आपको आपके किसी रिश्तेदार को मार दे खुदा न खास्ता, या आपकी कोई घर में चोरी हो जाए, तो because you know that you can't do anything, the justice system will not make amends for it and nothing will happen, then people say आप सब्र करें, इसमें खुदा की कोई रजा है, इसमें कोई अच्छाई है. Is that sabr? Or then recently, a gentleman on the net sort of like came up with a different meaning of sabr जो हमारे culture में usually acceptable है, और वो ये है कि you keep struggling for what you think is right. You don't give up no matter how difficult it is till your last breath, and you stay on what you think is the right thing to do, and that is sabr. Like to struggle for what you think is right, and it's not akin to giving up and saying, oh, इसमें अल्लाह की एक रज़ा है और मर्जी होगी, कोई अच्छाई होगी, इसलिए I should just accept it and move on.
In one sentence, do your best and leave the rest to God. This is what patience is. Do your best, and that means keep on doing your best. Keep on struggling, keep on making that effort. But when something happens which is contrary to what you might have wished for, then you just leave it to God, because then that something was meant to happen, and that something was meant to happen for your own benefit. So we have to keep on struggling. We must not get bogged down. We must not do something because we are helpless. So normally in our Urdu language, the word sabr or patience is tantamount to being a person who is helpless, who can do nothing, or who has no alternative. So that could be one extent or one intense form of the situation that you are facing. But on most occasions, it actually refers to the fact that when you are faced with a dead end and you've done your best, you have a wall right in front of you, and that dead end is something that is pronouncing a different verdict that you would have expected to happen, then you accept God's verdict for that. So that is what sabr is, that you do your best and then you leave the consequences to God. You are happy with the consequences because you think that what God made something to happen was the best choice for that thing to happen. Although I might not be understanding it to be the best choice at the moment because I find it to be cumbersome or bothersome. But in good faith, if I just wait for some more time, I would realize that option that happened was actually beneficial for me. So patience basically is to resign to the will of God as well. And that comes when we face something which is against our wishes. But before that happens, we need to keep on doing what we best can do. But when we face a dead end, we cannot move further, then it is here that we have to stop.
Thank you for that, Dr. Saleem. Umar Farooq, we will be wrapping our session. So if you have your question, you can ask it now. Otherwise, you can wait for the next time.
Dr. Shezad, actually, this is not a direct question and maybe not, but I just thought of mentioning it to you. I am a regular follower of Ghamidi app, especially for my Quran readings. So there I find in some places duplication of the text. Actually, there is not but there is the text of the Quran and it was duplicated. So I found this email that was at support@javed.com probably. So I wrote them and sent the images to them. And I sent multiple emails from that, and then I just sent them an email last that I hope you are acknowledging my email, but there was no answer to me. So I mean, if
You need
you are
you need someone who is responsible for this. And I think what Bisma here, who's moderating our session, can do. Are you talking about the Ghamidi app?
yeah, Ghamidi app, and especially the Quran translation
Quran
in the
app.
Ghamidi app.
So I think that if you write at query@almorid.org, have you written to this?
No, I
Or in
just
fact, I've just been corrected. It's basically
Mhm.
info@al-mawrid.org, info@almorid.org. Then someone is
Okay.
bound to reply, and in your subject, just write correction or suggestions regarding the app so that they know what the subject is.
Right. Thank you very much. But if Bisma can share these emails in this group, so I can. We'll
I'll do that, Farooq Saab.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Dr. Saleem, we're all out of time. If you are,
Yes,
you have
I
nothing
think
to add.
we need to end now. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thank you very much.